right, let's talk multi-unit property, first-time buyer. If you're an LO or an agent, listen up, because I guarantee 90% of the industry is not aware of this. And come settlement day, if no one's aware of this, you're going to have a bad day. So here's the scenario. So a first-time buyer can buy a multi-unit property. It's a real estate hack. Start their investment portfolio. They are going to occupy one of the, let's just say 4 units in this case, as their primary residence. In the state of Maryland, they're going to get we'll call it a discount on their transfer taxes. So save them a little bit of money at closing time. And then traditionally, your lender is going to collect 6 months of taxes for escrows and have that ready to go and ready to pay. So, but here's the scenario that you will run into if you have a first-time buyer buying a multi-unit property. When that package goes down to the clerk's office for recording, and they go to record the deed and all of the additional lender documents that are included, it's not going to fly. And here's why. So what we're running into, and this is a more recent problem over the last, 4 to 6 months, we've seen this happen several times, but in the lender's package, when that comes over to title, which is traditionally day of settlement, by the way, and very often it's actually just a few hours before settlement, day of settlement. So there's a little bit of a scramble there. But most title companies are aware of this, but not all. But here's what happens. That lender package in a multi-unit property is going to typically include a 1 to 4 unit rider that gets recorded with the deed and everything else. So the problem we run into is not the lender's problem, it's not the title company's problem, it's not the agent's problem, it's not the first-time buyer's problem, it's the clerk's office problem. The law says that if you're truly a first-time buyer, you're going to get a credit on your transfer taxes. However, the clerk's office, I should say, they are now pulling out and saying, well, wait a minute, this is a 1 to 4 unit property. This is not a first-time buyer situation. This is an investment property, and that's how they're identifying it. So what does that mean? That means that the first-time buyer is losing their credit or discount, whatever you want to call that, on those transfer taxes. In addition to all of that, now the lender needs to collect 12 months of taxes for escrows instead of 6. So it's creating an entire problem. Now, again, most title companies are aware of this, and they're going to catch it day of settlement. And this is why you're going to have a bad day if you're not aware of this, because day of settlement, usually a few hours before settlement, title, all they know up until the lender's package comes is they have a sales contract. And we all know the sales contract just says the material terms to the contract, the price, the settlement date, contingencies, this is a primary residence, this is a first-time buyer, period, done. Doesn't identify it as a multi-unit property typically. So the title company's working in the scenario or understanding that this is a primary residence, first-time buyer, they're going to get their credit. We're going to escrow 6 months of taxes. That's the if you're not aware of this, title works with the lender to essentially prepare the CD and all the numbers and everything that goes with it, right? But title's going to work on what they have. So they don't know this is going to end up having a 1 to 4 unit rider in the lender package until the package shows up, unless the loan officer tells them that, hey, this is an FHA loan, this is a multi-unit property, the rider is going to be part of the package. So the loan officers need to know this, and it's not that they've done anything wrong, they just don't typically know that title is not aware that this is a multi-unit property. So come day of settlement, the package shows up, that rider's in there. What happens next? If the title company is aware of it, they're going to hit the brakes and they're going to say, wait a minute, we gotta adjust these numbers. We're got to remove the first-time buyer credit. And now all of a sudden the loan officer has a cure in most cases because of how they disclosed. And then, oh, by the way, we're not collecting 6 months, we're collecting 12 months because now the lender's going to require that, right? Because the state's going to require that. Or the municipality, let's just call it that. So with that said, you need to be aware of this. You need to be aware that it's a great real estate hack. First-time buyer can go in and buy an investment property as long as they're occupying it as their primary residence in one of the units. But the reality is you're going to have a bad day if everybody's not communicating, and that's really what all this comes down to, and why I'm sharing this kind of PSA, because I've seen this happen too many times over the last 6 months, and things blow up and everybody points the finger. And we just had this happen again last week, and it was a local large bank, and the loan officer, who at this particular bank, it's not his fault, they're more of an order taker. They process their front end and then they're done, right? They're hands off. But I was able to get the loan officer on the phone and get him to help out with this and get his manager involved. And the reality is the loan officer's like, well, how does title not know this? So that told me right then and there, which I kind of knew and understand, but the loan officers don't always know that the contract itself doesn't state that you're doing an FHA multi-unit property financing type situation, so title may not know about this, right? So it was a Douglas agent, and I jumped in and we were able to get this thing done. Now, here's the interesting point and kind of closure to this. So one, just be aware of that. If you've got a multi-unit property, first-time buyer, make sure everybody understands that's what's happening, especially title, so the numbers are right up front. But what we were able to do, now this took probably a good 3 to 4 hours. We were able to work with the lender, the local bank, and it wasn't coastline this time. My coastline loan officers already know this, so we wouldn't run into this. But again, not anybody's fault. It's just something that not everybody knows. We don't run into this every day. But we were able to work with the lender and the underwriter to essentially have them remove the 1 to 4 unit rider and replace it with something that was called it's a HUD form, a hotel and transient HUD form, which basically says that they're going to occupy it as a primary residence. They're not going to use it as an investment property, blah, 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 blah. And it's a HUD form. So that can be used with that FHA loan, which is what we had last week. So again, just a little bit of a PSA education for those of you out there. Sorry for the long video, but I really hope this helps you avoid a bad settlement day if people didn't communicate. And this is not one person's responsibility. The loan officer is typically going to be the one that can best educate all the parties, because they know what type of loan they're doing and how they're doing it. So we would lean on them. But as an agent, you need to ask questions. You need to ask questions of your loan officer to make sure you understand. And then at the end of the day, as loan officers and agents, we need to communicate with title and make sure title understands that, hey, this is whatever the unique scenario is. It could be what I just talked about, or it could be something different. But look, at the end of the day, we can all help a buyer and or seller have a very good experience in a unique situation, just simply by communicating better and asking questions and better understanding ourselves. So maybe that's the message of today's video, is communication is key to success. But again, this is something that every loan officer, or not every loan officer, but the loan officer I talked to last week had no clue about any of this. And he was able to step in and again, help out. But we have to be aware that communication, sometimes just asking questions or making sure somebody's aware of a unique situation, can head off a bad settlement day. So this particular buyer, they would have ended up having to bring over $2,000 additional to settlement. I did speak with them. They were in a place where they actually could do that if they absolutely had to. Luckily, the lender was able to redo the package, we'll call it, and get us, help us find a different direction. But I will tell you, not all lenders are going to be able to do that, right? So sometimes it's just going to be stuck, and if the borrower doesn't have the additional funds, you might not be going to settlement. So, and again, all of this can be avoided by better communication. So thanks for spending whatever this was, a good 10 minutes with me, and I appreciate it. But hopefully you learned something from this, and you can have you can help your next first-time buyer sort of kind of become an investor, as long as they're occupying as a primary residence in one of the units. So again, that's another real estate hack. Happy to discuss that one if you want to reach out to me. It's a great way to start building a real estate portfolio. So anyway, have a wonderful day.